Hey y'all, I'm Jacinta,
And I'm Alexi.
and you're listening to Strange Colony.
We acknowledge the traditional owners of the country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to the land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging.
Now Vanessa sends her apologies today. She is having some technical difficulties and has bravely suggested that we go on without her.
Kind of heartbreaking, like that scene in those war movies. Go on without me!
Same
Tell
with
my
that.
wife I love her!
Marry her, keep her safe. Anywho, so today we're here to talk about the Nedlands Monster, who was originally called the Nightcaller. His name is Eric Edgar Cook, and he happened to be the last man who was ever hung in WA.
Ooh.
So do you happen to know anything about this one, Lex?
No. Honestly,
Yeah.
until you mentioned who it was, I had no idea who he was. I even Googled to, initially to see who the fuck it was, because I was like, this is an Australian case, right?
Yes,
'Cause
absolutely.
Australian killers don't get cool names like the American ones.
No, I mean, that's probably good to not glorify them at
Oh
all.
god,
but...
no. We don't want to glorify them. It's just we don't usually give them a cool name. They usually end up with something really weird like the Granny Killer.
Or just the Snowtown Murderers.
Mm.
Like, yeah, that's real creative. You picked where they were from.
Yeah.
Or where they were at, or where the bodies were at. Anyway. I digress. So we'll start with a little bit of background on Mr. Cook here. It's actually a seriously tragic story. So,
Ooh.
Edgar
Is this a case
was born
of
on the
created?
25th. Yes, very much. It's a nature versus nurture scenario here.
Yeah. As I've heard 1,000 times, you can feel bad for the child version of them, but the second they start killing, that's where you stop feeling bad for them.
Actually, I kind of stopped feeling bad for this one before then, but we'll get to that.
Okay, well, get this ball rolling.
Absolutely. So Eric was born on the 25th of February 1951 in suburban Perth, WA.
Mm.
He was the eldest of 3 children, but was born into a violent, very unhappy home.
Oh.
In fact, Mum and Dad, Christine and Vivian Cook, were only actually married because Christine became pregnant with Eric. So it's one of those...
baby trap.
Well, possibly, or an accident or something. Anywho, his father was an abusive alcoholic and would severely beat Eric whenever Eric tried to protect his mum. Sometimes Christine wouldn't even come home and would end up sleeping at the Como Hotel where she worked to just avoid the beatings. But, of course, that left poor Eric in the firing line. Wanted to add insult to injury on that one. Eric was born with a cleft lip and palate and had surgeries at 3 months old and another one at 3.5 years old in an attempt to correct it. But they weren't completely successful, and he was left with a mild facial deformity and spoke with a mumble his entire life, which resulted in him being severely bullied at school.
Poor kid. That's horrible.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's... And you can imagine if it was now, how much different things could have been.
Oh gosh, yeah. Like, there tends to be a zero tolerance policy in school bullying these days.
Oh, and ableism.
Oh yeah, and ableism. And people these days have, obviously as it goes down through the generations, are a lot more understanding and accepting.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You're not going to get bullied for a physical deformity that is out of your control.
No. Anyone doing that gets called out these days, and I'm thankful for it.
Same.
So, despite the fact that he was not a terrible student, he did get expelled from his first school from stealing money from a teacher's purse, and ended up being bullied at every single school he went to afterwards. So it was a very disruptive, and he was moving around a lot kind of with the schools. Home life obviously was miserable and just got worse. He ended up at points being placed into foster homes and even an orphanage on an occasion.
Oh gosh.
Yes. He took to hiding under the family home or roaming the streets at night just to try and avoid being beaten by his father.
Look, I don't blame him, but that's fucking horrible.
In those kind of preteen years even, like we're talking about 10-ish.
Formative years, so that would have been instilled in his brain as normal.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's where the roaming the streets came from for sure. He was often hospitalised with head injuries, which at the time they thought he might have brain damage, which caused clumsiness, but later on it was theorised that it was actually repressed suicidal tendencies.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, absolutely. He suffered from recurring headaches once he was admitted into an asylum, but the headaches did cease after an operation in 1949, which, oh gosh, how old would he be at that stage?
Wait, so that was 1949 that happened?
59, I think.
Oh, 59.
I'm pretty sure I've put the wrong year down there. My notes are not great.
That's okay. These things happen.
Anywho, he left school at age 14, started working as a delivery boy at the central provision stores to support the family because his mother couldn't support them alone.
I'm assuming the dad wasn't working?
I can't actually find whether or not he was. I would assume with his alcoholism, possibly not. But yeah, with 3 kids at home and Christine at work as much as she could possibly be, honestly, he probably just wanted to get the hell away from the house as well.
Look, I don't blame him. In that sort of situation, you do whatever you can to get away.
Absolutely. So he continued being hospitalised for accidents whilst he was working. Some of the more notable incidents was when he was struck in the nose by a winch at one job. In another one, he burnt his face with steam and suffered second-degree burns and jarred his right hand, injuring his thumb.
Oh gosh, ow.
Yeah, like this kid had a horrible upbringing, and this is all before he even turned 18. Like,
oh gosh.
Yeah.
That is so sad. Like,
absolutely.
As someone who doesn't have kids, I'm sitting there, I'm like, I will just adopt him and take care of him. Never mind the fact he was born over 30 years before
you even
like before I was even a thought. He was born before my mum was born, so
yep. Yeah.
But, oh gosh, it's just horrible. Like, it makes you wonder if he had a better childhood, what could have been in store.
Yeah. Bear with me a sec. I just need to quickly double check something on my notes before we continue any further. Quick amendment. He was born in 1931, not 1951. I apparently can't tell my 3 from my 5 when I'm typing.
These things do happen.
Yeah. At age 17, he started committing petty crimes, including vandalism, mostly at night. And he would later serve 18 months in jail for burning down a church after he was rejected at a choir audition.
Wait, he got rejected at a choir audition?
Yes. And so he burnt down the church.
That's a bit extreme.
Yes.
That's a bit of an extreme reaction. When you get rejected from something to maybe consider moving forward for everyone here. Take a couple of deep breaths, maybe get a drink of water, maybe go for a walk.
Self-reflection time.
Self-reflection. Maybe consider that, maybe your singing's not the greatest.
Right. Anyway, circling back. So he would sneak into houses and he'd steal whatever he could find of value. Basically, he was super opportunistic from the very start. This escalated to damaging clothing and furniture whenever people pissed him off. Sort of like acts of vengeance as a way to cope, I suppose. He learnt from his daddy.
That's not good.
And to give you a little bit more foreshadowing, he would also keep newspaper clippings of his crimes to use for boasting purposes in an ill-advised attempt to gain friends.
That is definitely serial killer behaviour.
Right? Like, all the signs are there.
Yep.
On the 12th of March, 1949, police caught up with Eric at his grandmother's house where they found evidence there. They matched his fingerprints to the open cases, and on 24th of May in 1949, at the tender age of 18, Eric was sentenced to 3 years in prison for arson, vandalism, breaking and entering, and stealing. Like, bang, you're legal. You're in jail. The detective on the case actually called Eric one of life's unfortunates, which is
accurate.
Bang on. So bang on.
Unfortunate, but accurate.
Yep. Honestly, up to this point, I feel bad for him. Up to this point.
Yeah, the second he started keeping those clippings as the second, I'm
creepy.
like, Actually, it's kind of burning down the church was one of them for me. Like, again,
that's
not a
huge...
churchy, but that's a very big overreaction.
Yeah, that's kind of scary.
Kind of then foreshadows any negative actions he's going to take moving forward.
So he serves his time in jail, gets out of jail.
21
years old now. He decides he's going to join the army.
Oh, God.
And somebody screwed up and didn't think to check if he had a prior record before he got enlisted.
Oh, God.
So he was found to have a record and was discharged, but that wasn't until 3 months after he'd enlisted. And by then, he'd been promoted to the rank of Lance Corporal and been taught how to use firearms.
Oh, that's not good.
No.
Someone fucked up.
Someone fucked up hard. Now, he had a stroke of luck and did well for a change at the age of 22. On the 14th of November in 1953, Eric married Sarah, well, she goes by Sally, Lavin, who was 19 years old at the time, at the Cannington Methodist Church, which has since been demolished in 1995 for the people who like visiting places that people killers have been. It ain't there no more.
Yes.
Now, they went on to have 7 children.
That's a lot of children.
4 boys and 3 girls. You would think. I don't know about, like, I know you're not a mum, but my partner and I have 5 and 1 on the way between us, and I can tell you, I do not have time to be a serial killer. Like, I ain't got the time. I mean, we've not even mentioned lack of inclination. But, like, where are you getting the time for this?
Look, I don't even have kids and I don't have time to do that. Like, what?
Right?
Life's too busy. Oh my God, right? Get a hobby that doesn't include killing people. Come on. It's not that hard.
Oh, I mean, he still technically had the stealing and the breaking.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I guess it's as they say, if you really want to do something, you'll make time.
That's terrible. So Eric still needed to feel the thrill of the crime, so, he kept stealing cars at night. At the time, he relied on people because in the 50s and 60s, and in WA, which was not exactly a booming town then, like it's considered a big country town now, Perth. But back then there was like bugger all there. So people would quite often leave their cars unlocked, leave their keys in the ignition. So some nights he'd not only steal the cars, but return them before the owners noticed that they were missing.
I guess he did that at least. That's kind of nice.
Just, put it back where he got it from. Just borrowing.
Just borrowing your car. Don't mind me. It's a big country town. You won't mind.
Sneaky borrow.
Oh, gosh.
But in 1955, after he had a car accident that required hospitalisation, he was sentenced to 2 years hard labour for unlawful use of a motor vehicle. He was, however, released from Fremantle Prison just before the Christmas of 1956, so he didn't serve the full sentence. Now, after this arrest, he learned. He took to wearing women's gloves when committing crimes to avoid leaving fingerprints, which is what had gotten him caught previously.
Well, I guess at least he can learn. Not the way you want him to, but...
Definitely not the way we want him to.
He learned.
But up until this point, like, it's all petty crimes and it's all just like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, he's on the wrong side of the tracks, kid grew up a bit bad, he steals things, but, he's a family man. And from...
Is he, though? Is there any history on him repeating what his dad did?
There's nothing that I've seen. I haven't gone specifically looking for it, but in all the information I've seen, it is pretty well focused just on his actions outside of the home. And I actually don't think there would have been any reason for his wife to suspect, because at one point she was happy to be his alibi.
Yeah, I would be willing to say in that instance, either he was a master manipulator and amongst all of his abuse, or he was actually a really good family man.
Like Ted Bundying it.
Yeah, double-sided. So on one side you have kind of Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah, kind of sweet guy who's there for his family, takes care of them. And honestly, there were a lot of people who found out later and were shocked. So I dare say it was one of those things of he's just living this life on the side, which is satiating all of these dark desires that he seems to have.
Yeah, I'm willing to say you're probably right there. I mean, if everyone was shocked, the chances are he was probably, full Dr. Jekyll-ing it.
Yeah.
Gentle, kind, loving, sweet, probably a great husband, fantastic father. person you'd be happy to have as your neighbor, but then on the flip side,
he was super helpful.
He's a monster.
And quietly spoken. Obviously, he had this kind of muffle because of his speech impediment due to his lip. But yeah, no one seemed to see it coming, and there was nothing to suggest that he was abusive to his wife or children that I've been able to locate. Like, if anyone's got any other information, please throw it at me, because it's been interesting trying to sift through this one. So, the Reign of Terror, because it was a reign of terror at the time. Like, there was these...
Oh, yeah.
It started in 1958 in September. And out of nowhere, these random, completely seemingly unlinked acts of, like, horrific violence just started occurring throughout the suburbs of Perth. And it was very much one of those lock your doors all of a sudden. Like, people had been quite happy to, just chill. Kids could go walking and that sort of thing. And all of a sudden it was one account of a woman who said that they had the toilet outside at the time. And she was at one point terrified to go to the toilet.
Oh, gosh.
Just because of the randomness.
I can understand that. And I mean, at one point when growing up, I did live with my grandmother on my mum's side, and she had her toilet outside.
Okay, those things are creepy anyway, right?
They are. And I mean, it got to a point where, like, I don't know who complained enough, but they invested in, like, a kind of seated bucket to have indoors. But this house is ancient. Like,
oh lordy,
it was before indoor plumbing would have been a thing. So, like, the shower when it was installed kind of looked haphazard.
Yep.
And that's just the way that goes. But yeah, look, thank God for indoor plumbing. Am I right?
Preach, sister, preach.
Oh gosh. I would not want to go out in the middle of the night to go take a piss, especially considering spiders and snakes.
My last house, we had a toilet that was in an annexed part of the house, and it was freezing. Honestly, I didn't want to bend my ass to it, let alone having to walk outside.
Oh yeah, there was one house I lived in at one point where, like, it was literally the house that Jack built, effectively, because it was like bits and pieces tacked on, and there was like a little run, like a little rabbit run, where there was the power meter reader in there.
Yep.
And doors to lock the rest of the inside of the house, but there was the toilet out in that area.
Damn.
So you can tell, once upon a time, that toilet would not have been a fixture of the house itself.
Yeah.
That house was horrible, though. It was fibro, and you could hear the neighbours down the road where they decided to play music. It was horrible.
Yay to upgrades in life.
Oh, heck yeah.
Now, this is the part where I start to go, I don't know how to come at this, right? Because there is not a single article that has a direct timeline. There is not a single one that lists things in any particular order. Like, everyone who has reported on it seems to jump backwards and forwards on how they give this information out. Now, most serial killers, because he was a serial killer, have an MO, like they use a specific weapon, they kill in a certain way, or they target specific victims, right? And you'll find that there are some who don't, like Ramirez. He targeted seemingly randomly, but the actions were pretty well the same,
Oh yeah, like breaking in, terrorizing, and then murder.
Exactly.
Or in certain instances, like, I almost feel like, because again, I've not looked into this one. I wanted to leave this all as a big surprise for myself, outside of ensuring.
Yep.
Because I wanted to be surprised. I'm allowed to want that.
You are. Well, you've picked the right one to be surprised on, because this guy had literally no MO.
Yeah, but I thought, with the night caller, that he would have had like a MO for maybe calling at night.
Not always. No, they called him the night caller because most of the attacks happened at night, but the what, even the placement wasn't even... Okay, so I'll just run through quickly. So there were hit and runs, shootings, stabbings, strangulations. He used different rifles in his shootings. He didn't use one gun. When he was stabbing, he didn't just use a specific knife. He did use different knives. He used scissors. He even used a cord from a bedside lamp and a tomahawk.
A tomahawk.
A tomahawk. An axe.
Wow.
Yeah. And because of how random and seemingly unrelated, because his victims, again, different ages, different genders, different demographics even, the police didn't immediately connect them as being committed by the same person.
Maybe that's the MO.
Well,
to keep it so random that he won't get caught.
It was speculated that it was possibly the case, but no one's actually sure whether it was deliberate or if it was just he decided he was going to kill somebody and he did it. Because as I said, he was quite opportunistic in his previous crimes, and a lot of this is quite opportunistic as well. Although there is evidence that there were points where he was stalking as well. So again, no consistency
Terrifying.
with this man whatsoever. Hence why everyone was so terrified. Like,
understandably,
they didn't think it was one person. They just thought all of a sudden people being attacked left, right, and center. And okay, there was a lot of people that survived his attacks. None of them were able to ID him at the time, but all of them live with some kind of remainder from them. His first attempted murder was probably the easiest place to start. Was a woman named Nell Schneider. She was a 26-year-old Dutch immigrant and a mother of two. She was riding her bike in 1958 and Cook ran her down with a car. She did survive the head injury caused by the impact, but was left with severe epilepsy as a result, which she has lived with for the rest of her life.
Oh, gosh.
Another survivor of Cook's brutality was Glenys Peake. He attempted to run her down with the car as she was walking home. She did manage to get away with minor cuts and bruises after escaping through a timber yard to the safety of her home. And once he was caught, Glenys was actually horrified to find she knew him. He'd given her a lift home and to the station multiple times and been super helpful and really nice about it. But she was
that would be haunting.
She was just there when he decided he wanted to hurt somebody.
But could you even begin to imagine that feeling? Like, you're just sitting there one day, you find out the person who attacked you is like the friendly person that's helped you out a lot.
Oh, you'd never trust anyone again, would you?
Oh, God, no.
I wouldn't.
You would be so haunted by that. Like, it would just chill you straight to the core.
Absolutely. Now, I'm pretty sure by the time he attacked Glenys, he'd actually already killed 2 people. But again, timelines are really hard to find with this one.
Jesus.
There was, jumping ahead to 1963 Australia Day, a specific day where he went on a rampage and attacked 5 people, killing, was 2 of them? 2 or 3 of them? 2 for sure. Because I can't remember who the third was. I'm not sure if it was Shirley. Anyway, as I said, timelines is, I've tried to look up the actual event and I cannot find a conclusive article that includes all the names in one hit. I do have all the victims' names, I just don't have all of the victims' names attached to the event. And with some of them, I actually had to go seriously hunting to find out what exactly it was he did to them, because their names are only attached to his. But I digress. 1963 Australia Day. When talking about it later on, Eric said that he'd spent the morning helping around the house and playing with his children. He went on later on to lurk watching a couple who was sitting in a car park. Now, it doesn't say what they were doing at the time when he was lurking and watching. However, we do know that it was Rowena Driscoll, nee Reeves, and Nicholas August who were conducting an affair. So he was married.
Oh, saucy.
Yes. So Rowena noticed that there was somebody watching them. Nicholas decided to throw a bottle at the voyeur. When Rowena noticed that the man was responding by aiming his gun at Nicholas's head, Rowena pushed his head out of the way, which saved his life because the bullet went through the skin on Nicholas's neck and lodged in Rowena's wrist.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that close.
That is a close shave right there, like...
Oh, absolutely. And these are the survivors. So Nicholas hopped, turned the car on, they sped off, they escaped.
Lucky.
Absolutely. Not so much for the other 3, I believe it was, the other 3 that night. If I'm wrong, please correct me, people out there. But from what I can tell, after that, he decided to walk down the street and unloaded the shell from the rifle and got it all up and going again. I don't know how guns work.
That is fair. We have our laws, and makes it a lot harder for people to come across a gun.
Look, I fired a pistol in a range once. That's me. I'm good. It was fun.
Yeah, I've held an empty gun once.
They're heavy.
They actually are quite heavy, and I mean that was an empty little 9mm pistol that was just empty there at my partner's family day on the army base.
Yes. See, army makes sense. Army and country makes sense.
Pretty much. Outside of that, I don't really see much of a
Purpose?
need
Yeah.
for a gun.
No.
That being said, I would like it if we could have pepper spray.
Yes.
That would be nice. It's non-lethal. It's purely defensive. And you're not going to spray that for fun, because if you breathe it in, you are going to be hacking for fucking ages.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we don't have that here.
No.
So, you know.
No. It was defenseless.
Carry something heavy.
That being said, you know, tighter gun laws at the time could have probably helped this situation a little bit. Not a lot, obviously. He would have found a way regardless, but...
Well, yeah, you did say he used scissors, and there's no laws around that.
No, but this particular day, he was just using his rifle. He was just literally walking around killing people. But since he failed with the couple, he decided to knock on the door of George Ormond Walmsley, who was a 54-year-old retired grocer. And as soon as he opened the door, he shot him in the head.
Oh, far out.
Literally. He rang the doorbell, George opened the door and died.
Well, if that doesn't make you anxious to ever answer the door.
I was going to say, as if you're not anxious enough anyway, right? Like,
yeah, look, it comes down to it. As it goes, I mean, I'm a huge true crime buff, so I'm already scared of the front door most of the time.
So it's the curse of our own design.
So if it's someone I'm waiting to rock up, they'll message me. If I'm waiting for a delivery, there's usually a notification that comes through to my phone. So if it's neither of those, I'm just like, no. Yeah. I'm not home, go away.
Now, after this, or somewhere around the same night, I can't even say after this because I don't have time frames. Alongside this was Shirley Martha Macleod, who was an 18-year-old and babysitting at the time. The parents of the child or children that she was babysitting came home to find her corpse. She was also shot dead with a rifle. And also alongside them was John Sturkey, who was a good-natured 19-year-old student who had the plans to move east to study veterinary science on a scholarship from the Department of Agriculture. He was shot in the head as he slept on the veranda.
Yeah, look, to echo the words of the girls from Morbid, fresh air is for dead people. Like, what? Why are you sleeping on the veranda? That is such a dangerous place to sleep.
1960s Perth. It's a safe place. Everybody thought it was safe.
It wasn't safe. It's just they didn't have the internet to tell them how dangerous it was.
Most people knew other people. Even with the crimes going about, you know, you'd leave your windows open on a hot day. You'd sleep out on the veranda or pull a mattress out to sleep on the veranda even.
Yeah, I still hear that, and I'm just like,
we've been raised at a different time.
I mean, even if you're not, I know, but even if you're not scared of people, what about spiders?
And
snakes and anything else? I mean, there are so many dangerous creatures in Australia. Everything wants to kill you.
People are still the most dangerous, aren't they?
They are, because at least an animal is very honest about wanting to kill you.
Or at least they have a good motive.
However,
it's either food or defense.
True.
Like, that is it. They're not malicious.
Pretty much. No. I mean, it comes down to it. They either want to kill you or they want the food that you have on you.
There's no...
I mean, even your domestic pets.
Your cat will eat your corpse, but there's a reason for that. Exactly.
Yes, it's because I'm not feeding him. Because I'm dead.
I understand that.
And he's hungry. And he'll be like, I'm sorry, Mum, I've got to eat you. But now I need to eat your eyes.
No more. Nom nom. But again, circling back because, murder and stuff.
Circling back, yeah.
There were some more victims of murder and there were some more victims of attempted murder. Now, Brian Weir was 27 years old at the time of Cook's attack. He did initially survive being shot in the head. He was in a coma for 6 months. When he came to, he was left blind in one eye, deaf in one ear, lost all of his speech, and was paralysed on the right side. He lived with his brother until his death 3 years later, which he did die from complications caused by being shot in the head. His brother would say later on that, he never lost his will to fight, but he would get so frustrated with the way he had to live, and that, he was killed just as much as any of the other victims. It just took him a lot longer to die. And I think that's probably, I found, the most tragic one because it's the most long-lasting, massive impact side effects. Like, Rowena still has the scar on her wrist, and Nell still has the epilepsy. But 3 years of being confined to a wheelchair, you're in a wheelchair at the moment.
Oh, please. Mine is barely anything comparatively. I've got a broken foot and I'll be up on my feet by February at the latest.
That it can be quite restricting when you're used to being more active.
Oh gosh, yeah, it makes you want to scream and cry half the time. I can only begin to imagine how much worse
your eye,
it was
speech,
for him, because he's then paralyzed on one side of the body, can't talk, can't see out of one eye, can't hear.
It would have been horrible, but he never lost his sense of humour. Apparently he used to roll his wheelchair onto the corner of the veranda, so he'd be just about to, one wheel was just about to go off, just to scare the crap out of his brother.
Oh, that is some beautiful humour right there.
And I think it's important to remember these sorts of things about the people who've, that's why I, tried to look for information on who these people were, because a lot of them, it's their names they're just victims. And these people are more than victims.
These people deserve more than just to be remembered as a victim. At the end of the day, the person who did this is, and I use the word person liberally here,
well,
because they are a monster. It is. And these poor people, they were just living their life. People were, indulging in infidelity in some instances. Other people were just answering the door. Someone was taking a nap.
Just walking down the street.
This one here, he was studying to be a vet.
Yep. Absolutely.
These people
they
deserve
had hopes
better.
And dreams, and people who loved them, people who missed them to this day.
And we need to keep that in mind, because sure, you can look at this and be like, we're talking about the monster of Nedlands, but these people are actual people. They're not just a statistic. They're not just a footnote in a story. These are real people that deserve respect.
Could not agree more.
And this piece of trash does not deserve glorification.
And thankfully he doesn't seem to have received it, just from the fact that this is probably it's got to be one of the most notorious serial killers ever in Australian history, and most people don't even know about him.
And to that I say good.
And also,
let him fade into
now I'm
obscurity.
bringing him back up. Do not glorify him, people.
Yeah, look, there are plenty of people you can glorify. This is not one of them. Yes, by all means.
Yeah. So I'm stuck on where to go, because I can go down two paths now, because there were two of his atrocities that ended up in wrongful convictions. Yep. And there is another atrocity which was his greatest atrocity. So I suppose, which would you like to hear about first?
Let's hear about these wrongful convictions. My main questions become, were these people let go once it was realised, or did they face the death penalty?
We do, because he was the last one to receive it. In WA anyway. Right. Mm-hmm. So. The first, this one I've got less information on is probably where I should start. And that was the case of Rosemary Anderson. Now, she was 17 years old at the time of her death. She went out with her boyfriend. They got into an argument. She hopped out of the car and walked off. He tried to convince her to get back into the car. She refused. She walked away. He stopped, had a cigarette, calmed himself down, decided to go try again, and found her dead on the road.
Oh my god.
Now, her boyfriend, John Button, was immediately pinned for it.
Yeah, understandable.
Yes, it is understandable. But... He was there. He was the boyfriend. He admitted that they'd had an argument, and he was initially sentenced to 10 years in prison for manslaughter after being pressured into confessing by police. After being caught, because we haven't even gotten to that part, but after he was caught, Eric did actually confess to the murder. But between this one and the other one that he also confessed to, the justice system was not quite prepared to admit that they had screwed up. He served 5.5 years in prison before being exonerated after an American expert who was funded by the editor of the Post, which is the suburban Perth newspaper, provided expert evidence that his car could not be the car that hit Rosemary's.
Oh, God. So they weren't willing to exonerate him initially?
Nope. Eric Cook did confess to killing Rosemary and the other person, who I will mention shortly, and the police and the justice system went out of their way to make it seem like he was big-noting himself and that he was just a pathological liar.
Oh, God.
Because they'd already wrapped those cases up. They didn't want to reopen them. He did recant his confession initially and made a sly comment about, "You've never been in the hands of the police before, have you?" Which I'm not sure if that was a jab at his own history with the police or if it was a jab at the fact that both of these wrongful convictions hinged on coerced confessions.
Probably both, to be honest.
Probably. He seems like he was a bit of a
cocky bastard.
Quite frankly. Yes, he'd gotten away for years just hurting people whenever he chose to. So.
Was Button released before or after?
After.
Eric got pulled in.
So, I can't recall if he did.
Please tell me he sued.
I did not get much information on him. There wasn't much to say, but they were really pleased with his release. But he was a young man who'd had an argument with his girlfriend and found her dead, and then ended up serving 5.5 years for it. Now, I'm trying to remember when.
It's terrible because, don't get me wrong, I understand 2 + 2 = 4. Usually the partner did it. The great thing about murder is the person who's about to kill you probably actually already knows.
Yeah, that's wonderful, isn't it?
You don't have to meet someone new. It's great.
No need to be scared of strangers.
Yeah, no, look, no need to be socially awkward. You already know them. But in regards to this, it's not how it went. And it's one of those things of, it doesn't always equate the way you want it to.
Rosemary Anderson was killed in 1963, and I'm pretty sure it was 1963 that Eric was caught. Yeah, so she was killed in 63, so her boyfriend was arrested in 63, and so was Eric. So he served for 5.5 years after her killer admitted to killing her. Absolutely.
That is fucked up.
The other one's worse.
That is so fucked up.
Okay. Right. Strapping in.
All right, I'm strapping in. Let's hear
it. Now, the other wrongful conviction was the murder and maiming of the body of a chocolate heiress. Yeah, her grandfather created Freddo. Like Australian freaking royalty right there.
Oh my God.
I know. Happy at chocolate. I've got Cadbury sitting right next to me. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but you said chocolate heiress. I'm like, that sounds delicious. I don't know what that is. I want one. Now I want a Freddo.
Gillian McPherson Brewer was a 22-year-old socialite and the chocolate heiress. She was slain in her Cottesloe flat, and her body was left mutilated by a tomahawk and a pair of dressmaker's scissors.
Oh, wow. That is savage.
Yeah. Absolutely freaking brutal.
Like that, if you didn't know that this was the act of a serial killer who just liked to change things up for shits and gigs,
you would think that was personal.
Yeah, you would think that was personal and angry.
Yeah. As far as I can tell, it was angry, not personal. I don't know that he knew her, but he did seem to have a chip on his shoulder about anyone who might seem to be like they were above him. and he wanted to literally cut people down to size in her case.
Yeah, so the bitter, angry...
Yes, basically
It's
he
not
was...
fair that I don't have it all, but you do.
The world's... Australia's... how do I put this? I can't put this delicately. He was one of those nice guys.
An incel type.
Yes, incel. That was the word I was looking for. Thank you. Yes, an incel. He's angry at all the rejections he's had in life and decided to, kill people.
Charming.
Which, honestly, most incels aren't too far off of.
Can guarantee.
But, right, to jump over here, there's a little bit of bit. So, Daryl Beamish was the man who was pinned for this particular crime. And I have to go back to that point. So Daryl Beamish was 19 years old at the time of Gillian's murder, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was born deaf, went to a special needs school and treated as stupid because he was also mute.
That is not fair.
The detective who was in charge of that particular case and quite a few others that Daryl got stuck with had a saying at the time and it was, any stick to beat a dog. Blah, blah, blah. Try that again. The detective in charge at the time had a saying, any stick to beat a dog, which basically just meant that if he made up his mind on who did it, he would then go about finding evidence on them as opposed to looking at the case openly.
Sounds like Detective Jubilant.
He was known as Mr. 100% by the justice system because he always got his guy. I wonder why.
Again, sounds like Detective Jubilant.
So, you might wonder, why was Daryl a suspect? Because he didn't know her.
Was it because he was stupid and just so happened to be in the area at the time?
Oh, not at the time, no.
No?
No. Daryl and a friend were caught stealing pennies from a gas meter, a block of flats nearby, about a year after she was murdered.
Oh my God.
Now, when he was first picked up, they were a bit more concerned about crimes they could figure out, like the petty thefts and that sort of thing. So they called in his father, who was a fellow Freemason, and asked if he minded if they added some charges to Daryl's record. They had him assigned to committing an extra 24 additional break-ins and thefts that he did not, and in a lot of cases could not have committed. Straight up corruption.
What in the ever-living? Like, that is such lazy police work. That is horrible.
Yep.
Like,
this made me so angry.
I can only begin to imagine. Like, reading it on the first instance, you would be furious. Hearing it firsthand here from you, I'm sitting here like, what the fuck is wrong with people? Like, these cops are so lazy when it comes to this sort of thing.
Oh, yeah.
They will pick the easiest target and slap it on them and then hunt them and hound them and bully them.
Yep. Oh, and he was near on illiterate as well.
Oh,
the poor boy.
The poor boy is
and so
this is
before he was done for Gillian's murder, right? So they've got him on these extra break-ins. They've wrapped up these cases. Mr. 100% keeps his 100%. Look at him. He's so awesome.
100% dickhead.
100% something or other, yeah. So another 6 months go by. So we're now a year and a half after the murder, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a tin of coins was stolen near Daryl's home. Okay. 2 weeks later, in the same house, another woman was attacked whilst home alone. She survived, and she could only recall two things about her attacker, or about her attack at all, I should say. The first was that her attacker did not speak. And the second was that there was a Holden with flames painted on it hooning down the street shortly afterwards. Guess who didn't speak?
Oh, far out.
Guess what car Daryl had?
He had one with flames on it?
Yep. To be fair, he had also been recently picked up for sex offences against minors.
Oh.
So, okay, yeah. He's not completely innocent. I'm not going to say he's innocent of everything. He was, 19 years old at the time. He'd picked up some teenage girls and gone to a car park, looked under their dress and driven them back and dropped them off. Now, I'm not going to diminish any sex offences, but compared to what he's being accused of, it's a bit of a jump.
So he's a pervert.
He's a pervert. Yeah, he's a pervert. And he was young at the time. and was being stupid. But after this point, Detective Douche decided that he was the one. Sorry,
Understandable.
Detective Leach.
Yes, that mispronunciation. It's a very tricky one.
I'm getting as angry with this detective as you were with the one whose case.
Jubilant. Oh,
yes.
Jubilant is such a douche.
It's so obviously with these offences against him already, Detective Leach decided that Daryl did it. Literally, that was it. He decided that's how it happened. He then proceeded to bring him in and spent time with him feeding information to Daryl, even took him for a walk through Gillian Brewer's bedroom and asked him leading questions like, where did you throw the axe when you were done? And he actually pointed out twice in the wrong direction and goes, no, that's wrong. Where did you really throw it? Things like that. Yep.
Leading it.
He fed information to Daryl. Daryl just agreed as he was expected to. Honestly, he couldn't understand everything because he's deaf and only a certain portion of it was actually interpreted for him. Not
That's
only
unfair.
that, but the confession that he actually signed was incredibly detailed for a person who had the barest of literacy. So he obviously had a lot of help writing that. When he was brought to trial, Daryl was not even aware that he could be sentenced to death.
Goodness.
No one told him. And when he was convicted of murder, he was actually initially sentenced to death. This was shortly after commuted to life imprisonment. There was a lot of public outcry. At points during the courtroom, the judge had to tell people to stop signing support for him and be quiet in the courtroom. Not only was there public outcry because nobody believed he'd done it, but he actually found protection in one of the unlikeliest sectors, in prison. It was widely believed that he was innocent in there too, and whilst he served, he was protected.
Oh, that's nice.
So, well, I mean, the police screwed him over, the criminals protected him.
Oh yeah, they were looking at him like, yeah, no, this kid would probably do something petty, but no, he shouldn't be here.
When he was first imprisoned, he asked the guard, "How many weeks will I be here?"
Oh.
And this is before his conviction was commuted to life in prison. So this is while he was on death penalty.
Oh, the poor child.
Yeah.
So he was literally under the idea that he was only going to be there for
a few weeks. Yep.
Oh gosh. What the fuck? Mr. 100% dickhead.
He would serve 15 years.
So he was in for 15 years.
Yep.
And at what point during his sentence was the actual person caught?
I'm trying to remember that one, sorry. I have that written down. Again, this is something that just upset me so much. I lost all faculties.
Understandably. I mean, this boy,
he's a child. He's barely into adulthood, and not like the way that Eric was when he was coming into his adulthood.
No, this was a kid that just so happened to be driving his car at the time.
And committed some petty crimes.
And look, everyone commits a version of a petty crime at least once in their life. Even if it's only when they're like 3 and they grab a thing of gum at the shops and hold on to it while their parent leaves the store and doesn't realise.
Right. 1959 was when she was killed. So he would have been convicted maybe 2 years later tops. So that would have been 1961. And
63 was when he was caught.
2 years later, the actual killer was caught and confessed, recanted, but then reconfessed. So he served at least 12 or 13 years after the real killer was killed.
That is so messed up.
Yeah.
That is so messed up.
Because again, the system did not want to admit that they had made a mistake, especially when they'd made 2 mistakes. Because obviously by then, John Button had been released long ago.
There's a level of ableism that exists in this.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, 1961 he was convicted. I can't... Even, I know I'm supposed to be the presenter, I'm supposed to have all the facts and everything together and put it forward, but this hurts my soul. Yeah. Daryl Beamish is as much Eric's victim as he is the victim of the justice system for what he's had to go through.
No, I don't even have words for it. It's just so...
Yeah. And I think it was 6 appeals he put in.
Oh, gosh. They could have even let it slide on the whole thing of, oh, we'll allow an appeal. Side-eye, pretending they didn't know they did wrong.
Well, I don't know about all the rest of the appeals, but I know that the first appeal was heard by the same judge that convicted him.
Nope,
Yeah.
Nope.
So that was expecting the man who'd made the huge error to admit he made the huge error. That was never going to happen.
Especially not in 1960s rural Australia.
1960s anywhere.
Yeah, but let's be honest, rural Australia in the outback where men are men and women should be doing other things, and I'm not wrong, you're... Oh, God. Yeah, look, don't get me started on this one.
Yep,
I'm going to sit down and
a whole other level of...
take a sip of water and not burn down a church.
That's a different podcast. Oh, dear. Yes. 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 But yeah, so those were the 2 that were wrongfully convicted for Eric Cook's crimes.
That's 15 years of his life gone. I mean, you can't give that back.
Well, he was in his 30s when he got out of prison. That's all of his 20s gone.
That's not fair.
Nope. Not even close.
Oh, well, I mean, hopefully he got some kind of apology.
I do believe he was compensated. I think it was $200,000.
Which back in the day would have been a lot of money.
I don't know when he got the compensation.
I'm hoping he got to slap the detective.
That would be all the compensation.
I'd be like, give me $200,000 and let me slap the detective, and I'll call it even.
Let me slap the detective with the $200,000.
I don't know, with the riding crop on the face. Barbed.
I was thinking briefcase, but sure.
Barbed. It has to be barbed.
Barbed. Okay, so we're talking cat o' nine tails here, are we?
Still only want it to be kind of a riding crop, but barbed.
We've gone down one angle, which was the wrongful convictions. Now, the other road.
Mm-hmm.
The other road is the road of the heinous atrocity, which is, by and large, Eric Cook's most brutal and depraved murder, which is, again, completely removed from everything else he's done. It's yeah. Honestly, it throws you off, even with all these, the hit and runs and the shootings and the stabbings. Might as well just say it. So, Constance Lucy Madrill was a 23 or 24, they can't nail an exact birth date, year-old social worker who was survived by her mother, Constance Alberta Sargent Madrill. Now, her father died when she was younger, so it was just her and her mum. And this one's hard to say. So he broke into her house at night. He decided to strangle her with the cord from her bedside lamp. He then proceeded to, disclaimer, rape her corpse.
Oh, God.
Then he disrobed her. Then he dragged her corpse across to a neighbour's lawn before penetrating her again, this time with a whiskey bottle. God. Which he left cradled in her arms for everyone to find the next day. Yes.
That's horrific.
A lot. That is freaking horrifying, absolutely. Horrific is the only word for it.
So a double post-mortem rape.
Yes.
That is really fucked up.
It's beyond any kind of depraved I can fathom.
Is that all the horrific details from that one? Alright, I'm
I figured I'd rip the Band-Aid off.
And I'll give everyone a quick little palate cleanser. My cat Palpatine has just spread his paws out while cleaning them.
Ah,
beans. Palate cleanser.
Yeah, sort of.
I tried.
I shudder every time I read it.
Fucked.
I mean, obviously after the strangulation, you don't know what's happening to you, but I can't wrap my head around how this man's mind works. I really can't. Like, it's not like this was his thing.
No, as you said, his MO, his style changed every time, which, again, I really do feel like it was his way of trying to throw the police off because he didn't want to go back to jail. But that still makes no sense to me, because if you don't want to go to jail, just don't break the law.
Well, and also, but like, this kind of level of brutality wasn't even necessary.
No, it wasn't.
Like, if you're just trying to change up your MO, sure, use different weapons, attack at different times, attack different people. But this is
necrophilia.
Yeah, it's necrophilia. Who engages in a couple of casual bouts of necrophilia?
Bella Swan.
Like, that was not casual. That was very serious. But no, it's not something that people go, oh yeah, I might just do this time. Like, I've got to wonder, was he possessed?
Maybe.
I cannot, and this is probably the thing that I find most fascinating personally about these kinds of cases. Serial killers in particular are my go-to when it comes to crime, is understanding the psychology behind it. Now, I'm not a psychologist, but I just have a really keen interest in the human mind, and I really cannot wrap my head around this one.
Yeah, no, that's really... I don't have words for it.
I know, right? And we talk a lot.
We do. Like, it's one of those things. I feel like it's something that can be said about all of us on the podcast here. We've all probably been accused of being able to talk the ears off a dead rabbit.
I've never had that exact one, but, underwater with a mouthful of marbles.
Oh, yeah. I always got wet cement with a mouthful of marbles.
But yeah, no, I'm stumped. And I think it's really funny because I actually chose this case at random.
That's how most cases for Australian true crime goes. Because, again, as I said in the first episode, and I'll rehash it again, our true crime, while it is twisted and dark and quite expansive, gets overlooked. So we don't hear a lot about it.
Yes. But it's the same with everything about us comparative to America. And Germany. Germany gets a lot of the crimes.
Germany is a scary place. Beautiful, but scary.
You were so quick to add that
I want to go there for a bakery crawl. Like, just take me to all their bakeries. I will eat everything, thank you.
Yes. Roll me away when we're done.
Wear something stretchy.
But make sure I have, chaperoning at all times, because no hostels for me. Ooh. I've watched too many movies.
Yeah, look, between horror movies and true crime, it does get a bit that way. Anyways,
I bet you're wondering, what the hell were the police doing to try and find this person?
Yes. Aside from blaming the wrong people.
So, after the Australian Day shooting, which was the big thing, the 5 attacks in one night.
That was definitely a frenzy.
That was Did he really not like his family that much that he felt the need to, go kill people after he'd been helping around the house and playing with them? I don't know.
Look, I get the feeling sometimes after dealing with children, you're like, I just want to kill someone. But that...
You know what? I've just realised I've missed a victim. I have missed a freaking victim.
Let's circle back.
Well, there's nothing to circle back to, because I remember I did look her up at the time, but I can't find anything on her, not even how she was killed.
Well, what was her name?
Penny Berkman was her name. Penny Berkman. Lest we forget, we should not forget, because peoples are important and the victims mattered. But, right, so after Shirley was found, the babysitter was found by the parents, that resulted in a fingerprint being left at the scene, and they were able to identify the type of rifle that was used.
Ooh.
As a result, this manhunt included fingerprinting 30,000 men over the age of 12.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. Interviewing 8,000 Perth residents and confiscating and test firing 60,000 rifles. And they still didn't find him from that.
Useless.
As is often the case with these kinds of things, they copped a lucky break.
Of course.
An elderly couple was out walking, and the wife knelt down to pick flowers from a nearby bush and found a rifle underneath it.
That is a lucky break.
I know. Which she handed in to the police. The police then decided to put the rifle back where it was and wait to see if our night caller decided to come back and get it, which he did 2 weeks later. Literally. Sheer dumb luck.
And for that, we award 5 points to Gryffindor.
Definitely not Ravenclaw.
No. That's a definite Gryffindor move.
After he initially denied the Macleod murder, because that's what it was linked to, he ended up confessing and confessing and confessing, including 8 murders and 14 attempted murders. He was convicted for murdering Sturkey, who was one of his 5 Australia Day shooting victims. And the thing that, the other reason that I find it hard to understand how the 2 wrongfully convicted were not exonerated immediately, this man was able to remember in exceptional details irrelevant things about the crimes that he had committed.
Oh, yeah, the nail in the coffin kind of thing, where it's like, yes, this happened, and she was wearing a blue handkerchief in her hair.
Oh, even more down to the detail than that. So on the night that he'd killed Gillian, our heiress, he remembered that he had actually burgled another house nearby. And when he'd broken in, he found a ticket. I think it was like a lottery ticket of some description, because I don't have his memory, but it was the ticket that he stole. And when questioned about it later from the house that he'd burgled, the woman did recall that she had realised that her ticket had been missing from her purse, and she thought someone had been in the house, but there was nothing to say anyone had, so she thought she maybe had just misplaced it. Now, he remembered that detail 4 years later, and yet Daryl still had to serve another, 12 years?
Yeah, that's really not fair.
No.
Which, again, is kind of why I'm glad the death penalty got made, taken out in 85. And in 2011, they actually put in legislation so capital punishment couldn't be brought back.
Yeah. No.
That being said, there's nothing to say someone later down the track can't rewrite a new legislation to overwrite that legislation and then bring it back. But that being said, it just makes it an extremely long process.
It makes it harder.
But I'm glad it's not, because in instances like this, Daryl should not have been in jail. He didn't do anything outrightly wrong in the sense that would have earned him that.
That being said, we can argue that Eric definitely deserved to die.
Oh god, yeah, look, he was taken out before then. Before it was taken out.
Yeah. Just before, he was the last one.
And he deserved it.
In WA. But, so he confessed to, and I'm going to take an exact excerpt from Wikipedia because they said it really well in here, whoever wrote it. Good on ya. He confessed to more than 250 burglaries and was able to detail exactly what he took, including the number and denominations of coins he had stolen from each location.
That's wild.
That's terrifying.
Does he have photographic memory? Jeez. You'd assume so.
I don't know. He was considered to be of reasonably average intelligence. Now, obviously, he tried to plead not guilty on grounds of insanity.
Bullshit.
Oh no, the lawyers claimed that he suffered from schizophrenia, but was dismissed after the Director of State Mental Health Services testified that he was sane, so, and the state didn't allow any independent psychiatrists to come in and look at him, so, which, I don't know, good or bad, whatever. But Cook was convicted of willful murder on the 28th of November 1963 after a 3-day trial by jury in the Supreme Court of Western Australia before Justice Virtue. He was sentenced to death by hanging, and despite having grounds to appeal, he decided not to apply, claiming that he deserved to pay for what he had done.
Good.
Now, I mentioned that he did recant on his confessions for the Brewer Anderson murders. 10 minutes before the death sentence was carried out, he swore on the Bible that he had killed them. So it was like his last thing was to be like, no, I am guilty. I guess conscience got to him in the end.
Who knows? People like that you can't really gauge anything on because they're just
I
evil.
I think that would be guilt. There's no other reason to have that be your final takeaway. Like,
yeah, true.
They get all sorts of like heinous people. Like, you think of the American ones where they're like, oh, some cool line to throw away at the end of it all, or something to make them seem even scarier so that they can die knowing that they're terrifying everybody with their last words or something like that. But, swearing on the Bible that you did actually do these murders that other people are serving time for. Actually, I don't think he gave a shit about John Button. I think he only gave a shit about Daryl, because he actually went to watch the proceedings for Daryl Beamish's court case.
Well, that's a bit different.
It was confirmed by his wife that he had never shown an interest in any court proceedings before, didn't even go to John Button. So it wasn't a matter of keeping track of his crimes. And it's speculated that it's because Daryl was also handicapped in some way.
Yeah, look, that would make sense. I mean, you think about it. He grew up his whole life with that cleft lip and palate and all that, and had to go through all the bullshit with that. He probably felt some version of kinship, some version of empathy
towards Daryl. Yeah.
Which, I mean, I guess that shows that he does have a level of humanity to him.
Oh, he must. He had a family that he kept quite well. People around him thought well of him. He wasn't obviously evil.
No. Again, this is probably one of those cases of, due to the sheer trauma that he faced during his childhood, and then not knowing how to deal with that trauma because it wasn't normal to be able to go get therapy.
Oh, what was even therapy back then?
Here's some cocaine, have a good day. I don't know.
Well,
I wouldn't say no to that. I kid, I don't do drugs.
I laugh because I know how much you don't do drugs.
Oh yeah, no, I party hard with a cup of tea.
Never let anyone tell you otherwise.
It's a wild night with me and my cat.
You and your Darjeeling.
Yes, my little kittle cat. He's so sweet.
But, I mean, honestly, was he sane, though? Could you possibly be?
I look at it this way. I don't think he could argue his defense in case of insanity, because he obviously had enough forethought and enough consciousness to know that what he was doing was wrong. But...
well, that would mean why you didn't confess. But I mean, I've had mental health issues for most of my life now. And I know that I've had points of dissociation where, admittedly, I didn't kill anybody, but I have obviously later been accountable for my actions, but haven't been completely aware of my actions during that moment. You get that impulse, and if you don't have good impulse control or any coping mechanisms, are you actually in control of yourself?
See, that becomes a very difficult conversation, because it becomes a case of, okay, if we look at it in the sense of mental health, sure. Again, our podcast, we may as well be part of a club here. Also not great mental health.
Oh, we're all a little bit fucked up.
Oh yeah, look, it happens. But that being said, it then means we then have to look at those who were abusers and be like, okay, well, what they did to me was horrific, but they also have mental health issues. Do we forgive them for that? Do we make exceptions for that horrible behavior?
Oh, I'm not talking about exceptions, not even remotely, because I believe with myself and with anybody else, regardless of what you have going on at any given time, you are always responsible for your actions.
Exactly. And that's kind of where it lands.
But it does allow me a degree of, I wouldn't say empathy, pity. And I'm probably going to piss a lot of people off by saying that I pity the man who did this. But there is actually a degree of pity there, because I do honestly believe that if this was now, not that the support networks are fantastic, but he would have had a better chance at being a better person.
And I'm going to piss a whole bunch of other people off here. Watch me go. If you want to look at it in the sense of breaking it down to that mental health, sure, you can blame his peers for the way that they bullied him, but the biggest bully of all was his parents.
Oh, for sure. Well,
making this kind of his parents' fault.
Well, his father in particular, but also his mother for leaving him in that situation. Yep. Yeah. Look, but I mean, at the end of the day, as we say, he was responsible for his actions. He chose to act on those impulses. He chose to bring that kind of terror and pain and continue a cycle that he could have chosen to break. Yeah. He could have chosen to break.
Exactly. There are so many people out there that go through these horrifying, abusive cycles, and at the end of the day, their decision then becomes, I'm going to break that cycle and stop it there.
Yeah.
Because nobody else should feel this way.
Exactly. And given sometimes it takes time and you don't immediately break a cycle, like you still repeat some of the same patterns, but he not only repeated those patterns, he did kind of
create new ones.
Go like all the other way to the end of the spectrum.
Yep. End of the day, he got what he deserved. He deserved that death penalty, the pain, the anguish.
Oh, absolutely. But was he sane? I don't necessarily think sane is the right word I would use. I don't think he should have gotten off because of it. I don't think he I think he got the conviction he deserved. I think he got the result he deserved. But I don't think sane is the word I would have used for him.
Ooh.
As a complete non-freaking professional weighing in here with opinion only.
Well, look, again, we weigh in with our opinions here. The facts are the facts we've found on the internet. The rest of it's based on opinion.
And our own personal bias.
Exactly. At the end of the day, we're all still human. And at the end of the day, I'm glad someone that dangerous does not exist anymore.
Not that he'd be of any real threat by now anyway.
No, but again,
because he'd be
really old.
Actually, he'd be dead by now. He'd be dead by now.
Oh yeah, he'd be like in his 90s by now.
As I say, born in 1931.
Yeah, he'd be 90.
Yeah, he's 90.
Going on to 91.
Yeah. Yeah.
So unless he, had a healthy life, which I'm willing to bet he didn't.
Well, no, I mean, with all the constant accidents all the time.
Fallen over and fallen onto a bandsaw?
Well, I mean, it's not unbelievable based on some of the hospitalizations he had. But aside from that, only thing worth noting was that he was buried in Fremantle Cemetery above the remains of the child killer Martha Rendell, who was hanged in Fremantle Prison in 1909.
First of all, I would just love to say your case was amazing, and you did so well. Yes. I loved it.
Oh, thank you, honey.
But otherwise, I would dare say, if you want to follow us, please do. You can also follow us on Instagram at Strange Colony Podcast. Or if you want to send us an email with a case request or anything else along those lines, you can do so at strangecolony@gmail.com. Otherwise, keep it spooky and stay safe.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.